Hi, my name is Erin, and I am 39 years old, and I'm from Mundelein, Illinois, a little town outside Chicago. A little bit about myself. So I grew up what a lot of people think is like the perfect family: white picket fence, mom stays home, dad works, makes a good living. Have a sister who's 10 years younger than me, and everything seemed perfect. We always put on a perfect front, even if there was little issues at home. And then when I turned the age of 18, that all changed dramatically. My mom came and told me that my dad and her, she was asking for a divorce, that he was having affairs and looking at pornography and all kinds of things. So my parents, who were married for 30 years, and what we thought was this perfect family, all came crumbling down pretty quickly. I was raised in church my whole entire life. Mom was a Sunday school teacher. Grandpa was a deacon. We were at church every Sunday. Very serious Baptist church where we sung out of hymn books. And so God has always been part of my life. And I did the Sunday school thing, and I ran Vacation Bible School, all of that. High school was good for me. I played sports and I got good grades, and so things were well until that day happened. Unfortunately, I had a broken mom with everything that was going on, and she tried to suck me into all of the drama, and they unfortunately had a very bad battle with their divorce. It took them over 10 years to get divorced. They fought about everything. My dad ended up getting arrested because they got into a physical altercation, and my mom called the police. And so things got very ugly very quickly, and I realized that this front we had of this perfect family wasn't real. And then I met my now husband when I was actually 18 years old. He was out there for boot camp for the military, and I was out with friends at a Steak and Shake eating, and we connected, and he did cheesy pickup lines saying it was his friend. And honestly, from that day forward, I think there's been very little time that we've been apart, right as my family life was exploding. And it was really just at the beginning of my parents' life falling apart. So he helped me walk through that, and it was a very, very difficult time. One hard thing was my mom didn't have computer skills, so she would have me look at computer history and try to help her navigate those things, things that kids should not do. At this point, really, our lives, church was no longer part of our lives. My mom wasn't going anymore. I was 18. I was, working and going to school full time and all of those things. So it wasn't a priority anymore. And I think with everything going on, it was just chaos happening everywhere around us. I still to this day don't know the whole truth of what really was going on between my parents. I feel like there's two sides and then the truth in the middle. So my sister and I have never had full closure and understanding of what has happened with that. It's hard. My dad's now on his third marriage. So out of his second marriage, I have a half sister with that mom. And then now I have two stepbrothers with his third wife. My mom went through the gamut of dating various people, which was very odd to see, because when I tell you I had the stereotypical family, it was perfect, and to see my mom do that was very interesting. But she's now been with I call him my stepdad. They're not legally married. They've been together, I don't even know, 12, 13 years. So that was difficult.
Can I ask you, your parents' divorce, how did that affect your relationship with your dad and your mom?
It's weird because my mom and I don't always get along and see eye to eye. She's very controlling. And I think it's because of the lack of control she felt in her life. She felt she could control me. So we've never seen eye to eye. And during the whole time that she was having me look at this pornography, I was in school studying psychology, getting my bachelor's in psychology. And I'm sitting here telling her I shouldn't be doing this, and she's telling my 10-year-old sister what my dad's doing. And I'm like, these things are not okay. And so that really divided us. And even before all that happened, we never really got along. She always said I reminded her of my dad, because I was very determined and strong-willed, and education, and my dreams were always to be like a stay-at-home mom. Like, I wanted a career and a family, so that was hard. My relationship with my dad, my dad was gone for most of my childhood working. He's very predominant job, CEO, made lots of money, but there would be weeks he'd be gone. So he was a good dad. He was there for sports, and he coached our team when he was there. So we were never super close. But during the divorce, he had nothing. He has no siblings. His parents have passed away. So he clung to Jesse, my now husband, and I big time, and kind of had us ride the wave with him. And it became to a point where certain lines were drawn, and my mom wouldn't come to my wedding because my dad was invited. All kinds of drama. Now our relationship's better, but it's still not perfect, and I've kind of left things go because I know there's a lot of hurt going on with them, and so they're dealing with their own things, and I have now my new family. It hurt. Honestly, I have to say what was harder on me is not having my sister there because of it, because she was younger and my mom had her full time. So that's the part that was really hard, even over my mom. That was really hard, so sorry. But through their divorce, I was going to school full time. I was working full time. Jesse and I at this point were living together because I had moved out of my parents' house because it was just too toxic. And, Jesse at that point had gotten out of the military. I was working full time, and we were working, and things got crazy when I had to be the guardian for my dad to see my sister, because I'm working 40 plus hours a week, going to school full time, and then I had to try to squeeze in time so my dad could see my sister. And I remember one day I came home from work and I said to Jesse, I'm done. We're moving. I can't do this anymore. And throughout this whole time, God wasn't a priority. I've always believed and trusted him, but never knew a true relationship with him. He was there and he was always part of my life, but wasn't going to church, wasn't furthering my relationship with him or anything. And so Jesse and I packed up all of our stuff and decided to move to California with his family. We weren't married at this point, and things were, we were 19, he was 24, and we were living what typical kids do during college. We partying here and there and having fun, but working and going to school at the same time. We moved to California, and things were okay. Jesse's family is not an ideal, perfect family either. It was really at that point that I saw how broken both our families were. But we just continued life. We went on thinking we were doing things the best we could. And he was, we were both drinking and doing the partying thing. He ended up deciding that he wanted to go to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute down here in Arizona. And we decided, he had asked me to marry him. And I wasn't the typical blushing bride at that point. We got engaged, and then I kind of didn't do anything. He was like, okay, well, aren't we planning a wedding? What are we doing? And I think some of it looking back was I wasn't excited about a wedding because of all my parents' stuff going on. And I was hoping that maybe their stuff would end so then we could focus on our wedding. And then so finally we decided we were getting ready. I think we were 2 months out from moving down to Arizona for him to go to school full time. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just figure it out. So we got married on the same day his grandparents did. 57 years later at the same courthouse. Still wore the dress and everything and had a, looking back, I mean, it was ideally perfect. Honestly, I wish my mom and sister were there, but I wouldn't have changed anything about that day. Had a lot of meaning and it was fun. So then we moved down to Arizona, but we never consistently went back to church. When we were down here going to MMI, I decided to start finishing school because I had put that on hold for a little bit. Started going back to school. Both of us had quit our good paying jobs in California when we moved down here for him to be a student. And literally a semester before he was done with school, I got pregnant. And so we were like, okay, all right. So things were okay at that point. We didn't have an ideal marriage. I mean, things were okay, but he was working full time and going to school full time, and he worked in the motorcycle industry, and there was a lot of partying. So there were periods where he would go out with his friends and drink heavily and not come home and things, but it was kind of inconsistent. There were times where he'd be there and not be there. So it was not terrible, but not ideal situation. And then we got pregnant, and we both sat down and said, we want to raise our daughter near family. We think family is really important, even though our families are dysfunctional and broken. We think family is important, and, let's go back to California. He graduated from MMI and landed a really good job selling engines and transmissions out of California. So it worked out perfectly. He had this great job, and we were going to move back, and I was able to be a stay-at-home mom, so it was all ideal. And we get to California. Riley, at this point, our firstborn, is, I think, 6 months when we moved back. She was little. And so he was working, and I was staying at home with her. That was hard. I'm not a stay-at-home mom material. I love my children to death, but I like having personal fulfillment, and I wasn't feeling that staying home, so it was really, really rough on me. Jesse was working full-time, but this is when things really started to take a turn. I'll never forget this day. I was at home with Riley. He came home from work and said, I'm going to the hospital. I think I want to check myself in because I have depression. And I will never forget the words that were said. I understand why people would want to kill themselves, and I don't know why I'm feeling this way. So he went, and that was a shocker. It was hard. He went in and he realized that he was going to get institutionalized. So he kind of started changing his speech so that wouldn't happen. But they did give us follow-up information with a counselor. And so we started, he started, and I started going with him to see a counselor at the point for his depression. And I don't think the family dynamics helped during that time. He had an alcoholic brother who would coax him to... He had a lot of flexibility in his job. He just had certain stops and sales to make during a day, but it wasn't like an 8 to 5. And he'd be like, bro, let's go get drunk. Let's go drink. Let's go do this. And so they would do it. I think that was the beginning of what I feel is the end of the road that really started it off. Things were not going well in our marriage. Because of the drinking and the depression and his family dynamics. So I looked at him again and I said, I'm done. I got into ASU. I'm moving back to Arizona, and I'm finishing my degree. Whether you come or not was pretty much what was said. And at that, he wanted to come. So we moved back down to Arizona. He had landed a really good job down here doing car sales. And we thought this was a perfect opportunity to start fresh. We thought really the toxicity was the family, and we needed to get away from that. Not realizing that follows you no matter how many times you move. It's still there. And so we get down here. He's making amazing money. I'm able to go to school. I'm working. I was blessed with a job where I could take Riley with me. So it was the perfect situation because I was still able to be mom and work, and I was, going to school. And that's when my husband was first introduced to pain pills. And that started a very, very dark, 10-year road. It started simple, and it would be fun here and there for him, and he would take it recreationally until it got to the point where he was fully addicted, selling everything out of our home. Got smacked once and put in jail, but we got an attorney and he was working through those things. And at that time, I think I was so focused on not depending on a man, because I saw what it did to my mom after her 30-year marriage, that I was like, I'm just going to do me and my kid and make sure that I can support us no matter what. I always loved him throughout this, but I got very hardened because it's not supposed to be this way. You're supposed to be married and it's perfect. You have money and a house and your husband works and everything's perfect, because that's what my idea of a marriage was, and my whole upbringing. God, at this point, really, I felt this is when he decided to come back. We started going to Pure Heart. We've always been going off and on here to Pure Heart, but this is when I really was like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't do this. He started doing Monday nights here for men's recovery. I didn't do any work on myself. I'd show up on Sunday and I'd go home and live my life best I could with what situation was going on. And then we let a roommate move in with us, and that's really where everything took a turn. He's still heavily addicted to pain pills, pretending everything's okay. We're fighting all the time because I was so angry and frustrated, and all I wanted was the truth, but addicts aren't good at telling truth. And we let this friend move in, and long story short, because of him, the pain pill use and drinking got worse, but because of him, Jesse got charged with something that got misconstrued. It was trafficking firearms, but we just pawned guns that he had given us. And so he was facing at this point serious time, all while in his pain pill addiction. And got an attorney. Things were slowly moving. Well, then while we're going through court and figuring all this out, we didn't have the best attorney, so things dragged on during this time. And God, it was over a year of court every month and continuances and not knowing where our life was going to be or what was going to be going on. And he was still in his pain pill addiction. I don't think that cycle of the unknown helped any. And, he would show up Monday nights here, recovery nights, high most of the time. And I'd still be at home. And then I'd show up on Sundays and go home and just kept myself busy. I'm very much I pretend everything's perfect on the outside while my whole world is crumbling down. And if I stayed busy, I wouldn't have time. If I poured myself into school, because somehow, despite all of this, I was still a 4.5 GPA at ASU, getting my master's degree, holding down 2 jobs, raising our daughter, because he was there but really not there. So I thought it would all be okay, right? Because I'm doing all these things and it'll all work out all on its own. And then he got in trouble for running from the cops on his motorcycle, and that's when it all changed. He got sentenced 2.75 years. And I will never forget that day because I had to walk out of the courtroom and figure out what I was going to tell our daughter. Because despite all of this, they were super close. Super close. That was his everything, and her dad was her everything. But I remember that day distinctly because I remember thinking to myself, okay, God, I'm done. I can't do this on my own. And I remember, it's crazy how God works, right? The day he got taken in, we had no idea he was going to get taken into custody. Him and I sat and talked, and we're like, we're going to marriage class at Pure Heart. We're going. It starts tonight after church. We're going to go because we're going to fix this. Because we've always had love for each other. There's always been this, despite all of this, he's my best friend. And I'm like, we're going to make this work. We're not doing to our kids what our parents have done to us. And he ended up getting taken into custody that day at court. And I said, you know what? I'm going. I'm going to go. I'm going to go sit through this marriage class by myself. But I'm going because I said I was going to go. And I know we need to fix this, and we can. And I sat in a marriage class by myself here at Pure Heart. It was, oddly enough, it was amazing. I felt peace, which is crazy. They talk about that peace that only God can give. It was insane because my whole world was falling apart. And I just remember feeling so at peace, like he has me. No matter what, it'll all be okay. And so I kept religiously going to the marriage class. I didn't share right away everything going on, but it's a little odd when you go to a marriage class by yourself. So eventually I shared, and the amount of support was amazing that I received. And for the first time in my life, I saw my husband becoming what I've always known God has designed him to be. This amazing, godly man. And slowly, through phone calls and letters and everything, he started releasing his stuff, and we started working individually with God on ourselves, which immensely changed our relationship and our marriage. And I remember thinking to myself, how is this happening? Like, this is the hardest thing, and I should walk away, right? Because I've been through so much, and you have all these people telling you, oh, you should. Why are you staying with someone like that? Like, here you are with your masters, and it was almost like I was this on a pedestal over him. And I remember thinking, but that's not what I feel in my heart, because I know the man God has designed him to be. I just feel it. And I remember seeing him as God sees him, not as what he's done. And that changed my perspective, because there's a lot of hurt and a lot of things, and it would have been easier to walk away. But I remember it was weird. It was almost like, I like to call them rose-colored glasses. I saw him through these rose-colored glasses of who he really was, not the actions he was doing. I forgot to mention, while he was going through his pain pill addiction, there was lots of emotional and physical affairs with people. And so that was a hard thing to take. But slowly we worked through all of this with him away. He started leading prayer groups and reading the Bible every day. And I was reading the Bible every day. And it was this beautiful thing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, we're here. We're finally here. Like, God is number one in our lives. And you could see it everywhere else. Then he ended up getting out at this point, and while he was away, God provided. I needed help from my dad for 2 months, and after that I was able to take care of everything all on my own. all my bills, my child, everything, money on the phone to talk to him, all of that. He provided in every way. I remember I got a check in the mail one day from something that I didn't even know. It was something I wasn't supposed to get. Oh, it was your bond money. And it was $1,700, which was almost the exact amount of what I needed to get through that month till I started my job full time. So the way he showed up throughout all of this was amazing. And it's those gentle reminders of reminding you that he has you and he's there for you. And so it was just amazing. It was wonderful. Another thing that happened before he went away is I ended up getting pregnant. And I remember thinking to myself, we had always wanted more kids, but wow, now is not the perfect timing, but okay. And I remember this is before we knew he was going to go away, and then he got out. And there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. I forgave him. He forgave me for things. But when you get out, there's all these hoops that you have to jump through he had classes and he had parole and all these things to do, and he didn't have a license at the time. And so trying to navigate my full-time job, our daughter who's in school at this point, and getting him to all his things, is super stressful. And I know it was wearing on him because he was sitting in the house all day. And we didn't start back to church right away. We did a little bit. And, we would read in the beginning the Bible, and we kept our consistent routines for a little bit. But then I was tired all the time. And I just thought it was all the running around I was doing. Well, come to find out I was pregnant. And I was like, okay, better timing, because our marriage was what we thought was in a great place. And here we are having a baby, not financially perfect, but we'll get through this. And I was tired. I would come home from work and go to bed right away. It was emotionally draining. I don't know if it's because I was older having the baby, but I was tired. And so Jesse was home alone all day. Then I come home and he's home, pretty much home alone because I'm sleeping, and he's struggling. And so all of this led him to having an affair, because there was someone there that would listen, and I wasn't. And I have to say, looking back during that time, God wasn't priority in our lives anymore. The one trait I can say about Jesse and I is we're both stubborn and thick-headed. We think we can do things our way, and that I don't like to say we don't need him, because I don't think we intentionally think we don't need him, but I don't think we stay in relationship with him the way we need to. And so that was hard. I was pregnant the whole time. This affair was happening, and it was bad. We almost divorced over it, because I said, okay, I've done this before. I've done the pain pill addiction. I've done prison. Can't do this again. We're not putting another child through this, this has been through enough. And then I remember one day thinking, wow, we have walked through all these things, and we've saw the beauty of God and what God can do. And I'm just going to give that up? I don't think so. Because I know this is not the plan. God kept telling me in my heart, this is not the plan I have for you guys. So I decided to fight for my marriage and for myself. And I was religiously in church every Sunday. I was finding any group. I had War Room, the movie, playing in my home at all times. I actually started a prayer room in my closet, and I would just write prayers, and I would read. And I was going to other churches that had Wednesday night service, and I was reading the Bible, and I just felt that presence and peace from God again, that no matter what happened, even if he didn't restore our marriage, that I'll be okay. He's there for me. And so fast forward, we have Grace 9 months later, and she's named Grace for a reason, because she's the grace of God. changed our whole family dynamic. And she made Jesse and I realize the beauty in life and fighting for things. And it's been a rocky road, but realizing that relationship with him is what's important no matter what. Through our walk, we're still working through things. Things are not perfect. Grace is now 4, and we've had a lot of bumps along the road. But the one thing that I can say that God is showing me through all of this is the beauty of him and how to take brokenness and turn it into something beautiful if you allow him to. I like to control things very much like my mother, and I have learned through all of this that I can't control other people. I can control myself. And so I just keep my relationship with him, and beauty comes from places you would never expect it. So God has continued to show up in our lives in tons of ways. Jesse and I attend Monday nights. He goes for the men's purity group, and he used to do the men's addiction here, and he ended up running into one of the guys, and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about this class for sexual purity? Because once you become clean off of whatever drug of choice, it leaves the rest of you that's still broken and why you use those drugs. So maybe this is a good fit for you." So we ended up, ended up going to that and said to me, "Hey, there's a group for women. How about you try it?" And I have to say, it's the most amazing thing. You think you're alone. You think your marriage is so broken. We've had infidelity and pain pills and pride on both our parts. But there's this community of people who've walked through and been redeemed and knows the pain that you're going through and helps you walk through it. It's been absolutely amazing. So we're both still continuing to work on ourselves. I think God knows how thick-headed and stubborn we are, and he likes to bring us back to him. Sometimes we don't like the way he brings us back to him, but he's definitely working on realigning our lives and making him priority. And although it's been hard, I don't think I would change it, which is crazy to say, because until I walked through all these hard things, I didn't know what a relationship with him was like. And there's true peace and beauty being in a relationship with God, because it's only through him that I feel like I've been able to continue in a lot of situations where a lot of people would have quit. So
Thank you for sharing. Can you go back and kind of walk me through your faith journey? Because it sounded like you grew up perfect family, going to church, involved, and then it kind of walked me through the ebbs and flows of how did you decide to get closer to God, and then what was kind of pushing you away and bringing you back and all of that?
So like I said, I was raised in church my whole life. I did the Sunday thing, the Sunday school thing. I was in youth group, went to the retreats, did all of that. Prayed before dinner, right? Because you do that before you eat. But I never picked up the Bible on my own. I never saw my parents do that. We were raised to be good and have morals and all of that. But then really in high school, I kind of started walking my own way, doing things my way. I would still go to church and stuff, but it was really my parents' divorce that I think pushed me even further away, because I was like, okay, now I'm on my own. I believe in God. I know there's a God. He's there, but I didn't know what a relationship meant. Like, I knew he was there, and I knew if you accepted him into your heart, right, you'll go to heaven. So I did that part, and I just kept walking through life. really the first time, I want to say that he tried to bring me back, is what I like to call it, is when my husband was going through his pain pill addiction while we were going through all the court stuff. I started feeling that pull of wanting more. Wanting more than just going to church on Sunday and doing what you're supposed to do. Because Jesse and I, throughout our whole marriage and my whole life, we would do that. We would go here and there, but we would show up on Sunday and go home, and that was that. So I really want to say, in the beginning of his addiction, that's when I started to really try to form a relationship with God. But the real defining moment was when he got taken away and put in prison. That I was like, it's almost like my full surrender, like, okay, I'm done doing this my way. It's now your way. Lead my path. And that's when he became number one in my life. And then after Jesse got out and being pregnant and all those things, we walked away, not intentionally. It was slow over time. Like, it just wasn't priority. Like, oh, we're tired. We're not going to go on Sunday, or we're not going to read the Bible together. We're not going to pray together. So it was just slow, bit by bit. And then that's when we really started to see our lives change again for the worse, where, the affairs started happening slowly over time and all of that. And then that was what I like to call my second time of God saying, okay, remember it's me. And your focus should be on me, and relationship with me was during that time of him pulling me back. I think, and honestly, I feel like I thought when he was in prison that was the time, but really I think it was the affair, because I think that was harder on me, because we had walked all this out while he was in prison, and I had my husband, the godly man that I always prayed for, who then came out and did one of the most unspeakable things. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. Like, we're redeemed, right? We're fixed. And so that was hard, but that's when it really broke me, because I was sitting there going, okay, I'm going to leave. I can't do this. Like, he's done every wrong you feel like someone can do to you. Like, why are you staying for this? And I just remember God kept putting it on my heart, like, yes, he's doing these actions, but that's not him, and that's not the story I have for your life. And that's really when I remember this one distinct moment. Jesse wasn't home. He was out with the other person, and I think our oldest was at school, and I was still pregnant at the time. And I remember just falling to my knees in our bedroom and just saying, just fix me, like, fix this, you have my life and do what you want with it. And really from that point on, I've know what a real relationship is with him. And I know when I feel distant from him, he kind of nudges me back. And I try to, like, I thirst for him, which I know people say that, but it's weird. I thirst for his music and to read his word and to be in relationship with him, because no matter what else is going on in the world, because no matter what, life's not perfect. There's always going to be heartache, but through him, you can feel that peace through everything. So I have to say, I think that's kind of my journey. And I'm still a work in progress. It's not perfect. There's still days that I get super angry and sad at the things that I've gone through, and I get super upset at my husband for the pain that he's caused me, because I didn't ask for it. But I realize the pain that he has too. It's interesting when you get to see people hurt you through God's eyes, because it changes your whole perspective. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's only through God that I think I can do that. One time when Jesse and I were really fighting for our marriage, when he had come home and he was having the affair, he opened his Bible. We finally got it back from county because he couldn't take it with him. So it was his, right, your first original Bible. And we opened it together to read. And he had marked all of these random passages, all having to do with adultery and other women and how not to lust and all of these things. It was like a pure God moment. It was almost like God at that time when Jesse was in county was trying to say, okay, you think pain pills are your problem. You think these things are your problem, but really at the root of your problem is lust and women. And he literally, I don't even know how many verses were there. I mean, there was like 5, 6 that he had marked for no reason. And at the time he had no idea why. And so we felt like that was God showing up like, hey, this is that seed that needs to be worked on in your relationship. There's so many times starting this beloved class on Monday nights. I'll never forget Sarah, who's one of the leaders, her and her husband were in my marriage class when I was going alone. And I remember looking at them being like, all the other married couples, like, wow, they have this figured out. Like, how can we be like them? And I walk into this class broken through all of this, and I see her. And I realize, and through her story of their brokenness, how it wasn't perfect, but God has showed up in their lives, and now she's helping others. So I feel like there's tons of times that he shows up. Both my husband and I at this point have fully surrendered, and we're working on ourselves and our individual relationships with God. And one thing I like to say to my husband is, you never know who's watching out there. And he's on this platform for weightlifting. He's doing things that most people are. I mean, I think there's 11 in the world that they're going to do that can bench press 1,000 pounds. And so I've always joked with him, even through our whole marriage, I'm always like, people are watching. And so he keeps reminding us of that a lot lately. We were at a nutrition place, and the guy recognized him off of Instagram. Last night we're leaving the gym, and we get stopped by a gentleman that goes, hey, do you guys go to Pure Heart? He's like, and we're like, yeah, we go. And he's like, oh, I see you guys there every Sunday. So it's just interesting. God reminds you that he's there, but also that there's eyes on you, and to lead by example, and to have others see him through you. Because there's times that I saw him through other people too, and I think it's a breath of fresh air. One of the most amazing ways is, as my husband's been through the different Monday night recovery groups, Michael, who does the men's recovery on Monday nights, when he used to go to that, Michael would always tell my husband, who would come home and tell me, you guys are going to have a story that helps others if you allow it. And we had, in the apartment complex that we were living at the time, we had a young couple who were having issues, and we were able to help them through their issues and help them kind of walk through their season. And we brought them to Pure Heart, and they are since moved on because they're a military family, but they're active in church and reading their Bible and an encouragement to others. So it's neat to see the way he uses your brokenness to help other people, because it's shocking who else is broken out there. Like I said, I'm great at putting on the front, and I think a lot of us are. So it is neat to be able to see and help others once you are transparent with the hardships that you've gone through. So
I think the last question I have for you is just to kind of walk me through or explain how does the healing process work, forgiving somebody, forgiving yourself. I know you said that you guys are still working on yourselves and each other and all of that, but being on the other side now, focusing on God and your relationship, what does that look like?
Messy. It's hard because we have what the world tells us how you should react, and how things are not okay. And they're not okay. I'm not saying that they are, but that you should just leave, or I can't believe that you should have an affair on him. There's so many worldly things, and I have that. I have the anger. I have that I'm walking away. I'm done hurting. I have all of that. And so sometimes you go back and forth. I still think there's good days and bad days, where I'm really angry, but I think the biggest thing is when you give it to God, he slowly changes your heart. And like I talked about those rose-colored glasses, I think if I was unable to see my husband the way God sees him, I wouldn't be with him, and I wouldn't have been able to forgive. I think one of the biggest things for forgiveness is empathy. Understanding that hurt people, and it doesn't make it okay, but there's a reason that they do those things, and it varies from person to person. But I think empathy is one of the tools that God uses for you to see people how he sees them, because like I said, it doesn't condone it, but it gives you a different perspective. And I think that forgiveness, even when we don't want to do it, if you are doing the steps towards it and releasing it to God, it slowly changes your heart. And one of my favorite things is forgiveness isn't for the other person. I think a lot of people misconstrued that it's like you're letting that person free, but really it's letting you free, and freeing up your heart. And I think that's really the only way to do it.